Hey guys, so I wanted to document some of the stuff I've been doing to my tractor. I haven't been able to find a whole lot of the information in one place, so I decided I'd kind of piece it together for you. Basically, I was having some issues with some electrical things on my tractor, couldn't get it to start, had a couple of shorts, so through a process of watching other videos and reading stuff online, I decided to put it all together in a video for you. So first thing, I'm not done with this yet, but I just wanted to show you how I have the battery and everything mounted and wired. So of course this is your negative side here. It used to be grounded down here on this side, but there were some there was a bolt somewhere that I had to shave off. I think it was right in there, and it was all rusted, and so I basically wanted to find a new ground point. So I went and bought some wires, or actually my brother-in-law bought some battery cables, and it was a little long. I didn't want to cut it and waste it, so I basically ran a new ground over to this side, pulled this bolt out here, and used a wire brush and knocked all the dust and rust and dirt and everything off so it would ground a whole lot better. So I have the negative grounded to that side. I actually bought some, or with these battery cables came these new terminal clamps. As you can see, this thing doesn't have a front grill on it, and so just being left out in the weather, I guess, these rusted. So this side rusted, so this is an old clamp, might have even actually been off of this tractor, can't remember, but anyway, so I put a new clamp on there, and so your positive side runs around here. You can follow this cord here, plugs in to this terminal of your starter solenoid here. And so whenever I was going through all the wiring issues, I thought maybe the old solenoid was bad. So I pulled it off, undid all the wires, and of course did not really pay attention to where they all go. So part of what I had to look up and try to piece together was how this thing should be wired. And so I want to tell you about what I've learned. So first of all, taking the solenoid off is actually, it's pretty easy, but you have to take the starter off as well, and I'll show you why. So it's mounted here, or it rests here, and it goes in here, and there's a little thing in there that engages the starter, but it's got a screw here and a screw on this other side. And the only way to get to those screws, because of your tractor here, this big metal casing or whatever it is, only way to get to that is actually pull the whole starter off. So there's two bolts. There's this one here, and there's one under here. And so what I had to do was take two to get a socket wrench drive extension to reach that bolt. You can see it under there, because you can't fit your wrench in here. Maybe if you had just a regular wrench, it just doesn't leave enough room to turn. So I got an extension, put it in, had my socket wrench way down here, and unloosened it that way. So to pull the starter out, so this whole piece here is your starter, solenoid sits on top. To pull it out, you kind of have to work it up and twist it and pull it out the top up here. It was a little tricky, but that's all that's holding it on there. So it should slip right out. It's not bound up inside to the starter. It's just some gears that fit together. And if you guys want to see that, let me know, and I'll make a video just showing that. But anyways, once you pull your starter off, you undo these screws here, and your solenoid comes right off. And it's got this pin inside. And I have an old solenoid. I'll show you in just a minute what that looks like. But anyways, you pull off your two exterior nuts here and unplug all of your wiring to get that off. All right, so when you're putting this back on, here's what I found. So this is your positive battery cable here. So it's going to go to this side, This wire down here actually runs to your alternator. And so you can see that it comes out there. It's this black and blue wire. Comes out here, and actually you can see it there. And then it connects with this white and black wire, which is the wire that ultimately comes up here and hooks up to your alternator. So I could take all of this plastic, wire covering here off if I wanted to, but I didn't really want to do that because I didn't want to, I didn't want to have to replace it, tape it, whatever. So I left all that on there, but I traced it back that way. So anyways, then this wire here is actually this wire to your starter. So it plugs into the other side of your solenoid. This is basically running back to your key, your ignition. And so that clamps on here, and you may have a different looking solenoid, but essentially you're going to have two posts, and then this, which is basically going to, whenever this is triggered, it tells this terminal, these two terminals here, to connect, essentially. All right, and then on this side, this red wire actually runs all the way around to the other side. There's another solenoid over there called your fuel stop or engine stop solenoid. What I actually did at first, so please learn from my mistake, is I actually wired this to this side because it was red, but essentially what it does is I'll show you the solenoid over here. This is the solenoid right here. It plugs in with this thing here, and this is one of those. I think that big one there is that red wire from the other side. And essentially that solenoid's got a little pin in there, and that pin is drawn back whenever you, I think, turn the key on. It pulls it back, and when you turn it off, it shoots it back in. Well, in order for it to work based on the key is part of what drives that starter solenoid. And so if you have it plugged into the positive side, so basically it's getting power constantly from the battery, it's always going to be drawn in, and so it's always going to have power. Well, what happened was that thing got so hot, the wires back here, which I'll show you, got hot, they broke off, and so it ended up causing a big issue with all my electrics stuff on here. So it needs to be wired into the negative side of that solenoid so that when you turn the key on, it gives it power then, and then when you turn it off, that pin actually goes back in, and that's what shuts down your tractor. All right, so plug this back in here. So essentially you got five wires. So you got your battery terminal wire coming in here. This goes back to your alternator. That's going to be essentially all your other electronics, because your alternator here has all this. It goes back to all of your other electronics there. So that goes back to your alternator. This goes to that fuel stop solenoid, and this goes back to your key. All right, so now I'll show you what the solenoids look like. Okay, so this is the old fuel stop solenoid that I took off here. You can see down there where those wires basically just got hot, melted off. Otherwise, the solenoid actually still works. So this is that pin out, and you can't really push it in that well, but you can see how it does move in. Basically, when you give it power and you turn the key on, it's supposed to pull that pin in, and then when you turn it off, it shoots that pin out. And I guess that pin in there essentially blocks fuel or cuts off air or something to shut down the motor. Not exactly sure what it does 100%, but you can see I got some oil or hydraulic fluid or something leaking all over this thing. So that's your fuel stop solenoid. I bought this on FarmTrac parts or one of those websites. Basically, I Googled this solenoid, and it's a Mitsubishi model. No, I bought this off of Amazon, actually. But the other solenoid I got from FarmTrac parts, I believe. So this solenoid actually might still be good, but I took it off anyways. So this piece here fits inside of your solenoid, and this, you just bend it over so that whenever it's engaged, it catches here. So essentially, this is looking at it like it's on my tractor, same orientation. So positive terminal here, battery cable comes in there, and then this side goes to your starter, and this is that little key activation thing. So basically inside here, there is a switch connecting these two terminals, and that switch in its unpowered state is open, so there is no connection. Whenever you turn your key on, essentially, or when you turn it to the actual ignition phase, it drives power to here and tells that switch inside to close, so that then there is a connection between these. And basically, if your solenoid is bad, one thing you can do to jump your tractor off, is get a wire, or some people do it with a screwdriver or whatever. Basically, you connect these 2 points. It causes a big spark. It's not very safe, but it basically does the same thing. It bypasses this whole electromagnetic switch in here, and will start your tractor that way by connecting these 2 terminals. It also, if your solenoid is good, but something's wrong with your ignition switch or something like that, you can connect these 2, and it'll close that switch in there and make a connection with these 2. And then it will basically drive this pin out here. And inside your starter, there is a gear, kind of, doesn't necessarily look like this, but you'll see. So when it throws this pin out, then your starter with your gear comes out, and that's what actually, there's some gears in there, and it actually will start your motor that way. So your starter is getting power from here, and so whenever you excite this switch, close that, it gives your starter power, and at the same time this pin comes out and it engages your starter. So that's it for this video. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel so you can see more of that. And hopefully, if you have a tractor like this or similar tractor, you can apply this information as well. All right, thanks again for watching.